Greetings, Stalkers, and welcome back to the Grymm Mansion. I am your ecstatic host, Weird Aldrich, and I'm joined this night, and all nights, as usual, by my most despised friend.
Obama Nathan. Thank you very much, Eldridge.
You are most certainly not welcome. Tonight, we are very, very excited to bring you. I think I can speak for the both of us when I say what is probably the best movie that we've seen of the past 10 years. I don't know. It's very easily up there when compared to most contemporary movies we have watched.
Yes, the year is not even halfway done, so we can't really speak for. Yeah, I don't know what other horror movies are coming, but of this year, this is definitely the best one so far. Yes, this is a doozy. This is a surprising as well because it's an indie movie. There's also that, and yeah, we're talking about Late Night with the Devil.
Our candles are lit, the circles have been closed, the words of power have been recited. Let us begin tonight's gathering. This one is, I guess we say this a lot, but I don't think how I can stress how different and unexpected this flick really was.
I think the Stalkers should think of this as imagine an alternate 1970s. So everything that you know and love also kind of happened, the Vietnam War and the Satanic Panic and all that stuff.
I didn't really like the Satanic Panic, not the panic part. The Satanic was great.
True. I mean, okay, personally, I thought the Satanic Panic was a bit
Blown out of proportion.
Yeah, an overreaction. But and honestly, also cultural appropriation from the people who don't really know what the heck we're doing.
D&D players.
Yeah. But nonetheless, this is why I like to think of this as like an alternate 1970s, because you have some familiar things but different faces. Because one of the things that is slightly different about this movie is that this movie is centered. In fact, the entirety of the movie is supposed to be a rerun of a late night show that is called
The Night Owls.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so this is a late night show that started in 1971. The host is Jack Delroy.
He signed a 4-year deal with the station.
Mm-hmm.
And he was... I think the movie wants to sell the point that this could have really happened, and this guy just... Everybody collectively forgot about him.
Yeah.
Because history only remembers the victor, right? And if you're not Jay Leno, if you're not David Letterman, if you're not, one of these big names, nobody will remember who you are.
Right. And that's it is set up from very early. Oh, because we have like an exposition dump that's like 10 minutes long or something.
Because they present to you this as if they just found this tape and this was edited to be presented as a sort of not documentary. But yeah, like that. This introduction serves as if you were watching this on TV. Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed, and they do this very well. They do this. It's done to be as realistic as possible and as close to a real TV program as possible. It's so.
Oh yeah, they really went to the effort to make that happen. But before we delve any further into this analysis, let's just go ahead and talk about the movie, make our
Right.
synopsis.
So as we said, the movie opens with a 10-minute long explanation of every significant event that happened until this point. So yeah, Jack Delroy got a
Actually, it
4-year,
was a 4-year deal. My bad. Not a 4-year deal. I have it in my notes that he signed a 5-year deal in 70
5-year deal. There
72.
we go.
But yeah, sorry. There's a lot of things going on, and I think what matters here is that, as you say, he signed this contract. He got married with an actress, whom he was very happy with.
Madeline Piper.
He had sort of accusations, rumors going on, I should say, that he belonged to this fraternal secret society called the Grove, which apparently were into, let's call it, pagan rituals and stuff that they do in the woods that, men of said stature should not be doing, apparently. So all of this to let you know that he's always the number 2 behind Carson.
He's just barely not showing up in like I guess the newspapers and stuff like that. He's kind of an underdog in a way. And it's established that he is frustrated by this. Like, this is a guy who he's not gonna settle for number 2. He even says the history remembers only kings, or something like that.
Later on in 76, his wife gets diagnosed with cancer.
Right, lung cancer.
That's the biggest point. She's not a smoker, and it's a sudden terminal, whatever.
Yep, and well, after her death, he cancels the show, I believe.
Puts it on an hiatus. He disappears from New York for like a month.
Right. Yeah, he flees New York and only shows up a month later to bring back the show in Halloween night. And this episode is the episode that is the bulk of the movie. This is what the movie's really about, is this one, I guess you could call it reboot of the Night Owls show.
It's his last episode, the one that was, the last recorded episode.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be the first of the new season in a way.
After he came back.
But it was actually just one. Yeah,
and it was sweeps week, a very important thing for them because of ratings and who gets new contracts and stuff like that.
Also true. They're also they really want to like bring back like in all its glory and as strong as possible so that they get the new deals. Yeah.
And so his plan for a Halloween night when he comes back is to have a series of guests that he's going to host for that could capitalize on drama. A big point in this info dump is that his show eventually just started capitalizing on cheap drama to boost audiences. And in this episode, there's going to be a psychic, a stage magician who is also the, I guess, head of a organization of skeptics, who, he's in all of the magician's tricks. He can best debunk whatever feats they claim to do. And the other one is a doctor and a child. This kid has been living her entire life inside of a Anton LaVey, David Koresh type situation where it started off as a Church of Satan, sort of. And eventually they were raided by, the 3-letter word that...
The CIA or the FBI or something. It's interesting that, right, as you said, this is supposed to be like an Anton LaVey, like, this is why I like to believe this, I like to think of this kind of as an alternate history thing, because all these characters, they're very similar to real people who existed, but they're slightly different. They're not quite the same character. So, for example, like the magician skeptic you mentioned, it's basically James Randi, but not. So yeah, it's very interesting that they're grabbing, and even the doctor, scientist, psychologist with the kid, with the girl that has the supposedly possessed by a demon, that's
Mhm.
also a version of another person that existed as well. So it's like, yeah, it's very interesting that they're really grabbing on this familiar, almost like uncanny resemblance to real world. Just really make it as familiar as possible, and I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I agree. And all right, this will be all very important later. The show starts normal. There's the theme playing. There's the bit with when the host is making jokes about things that happened during last week, and
Mhm.
this is when I had that first moment, and I said, "This is going to be exactly like a talk show. This is great. The movie
Yep.
is extremely well thought out."
Yep.
Points for that.
It's framed, yeah, exactly like a talk show, and it's interesting because it resembles, and I would almost argue this is found footage
Yeah,
in
yeah,
a
yeah.
way. It is found footage, but it's also analog horror.
Mm-hmm. And it blends
Yeah,
well. Yeah, we'll get to it later.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry. So he eventually calls in the first guy, the psychic, Christu.
This guy.
Wow, he's very flamboyant. He's
I think he's
got
Mexican or something.
no, he's European. He's
Uh,
definitely European.
he speaks Spanish.
Um, he had, I don't know, he had something in him. But regardless, he starts by performing a cold reading on the room that fails spectacularly, ends up with him being the butt of the joke.
Yeah, a dude in
Um,
the audience starts making fun of him essentially.
mhm. Everything he says gets twisted in another way, and everyone's laughing at him. He obviously gets a bit pissed because they're making fun of his living, but
But
honestly,
then, in How the Tables Have Turned, he does another reading of an Edmund, and he goes really like he actually targets these two women who are sitting in the front row, and apparently Edmund was so this is like a mother and a daughter. So Edmund was the other child committed suicide, and Christus says all this. He essentially predicts all these events. Of course, could be
yeah, we later
trick.
come to find out that they were asked to fill a survey
Right.
by the
It's a
magician.
classic, one of those classic readings where, in a way, the audience is filling the gaps in
Mhm.
knowledge of the magician. So it's not that impressive, but it's still it is quite powerful.
Yeah, when you strike the right chords, it can really help people.
Yeah.
I understand.
I
At
mean,
the same time, I do not condone the fact that they're essentially tricking people.
right. I don't know how to feel about this
It's
because
for their money, obviously. If they did it pro bono, I
yeah,
wouldn't have no problem because it's essentially a form of psychology
yeah, it's a form of religion as well, of
as
religious.
well. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's spiritualism in a way.
Yes. But yeah, there's always yeah.
Just
We
be
can talk about
careful
this
who
later.
you. Yeah.
And just as they're ending this segment, so because he's basically doing the whole like Chris to everybody and like the we have a great show for you tonight. Our guests are blah blah blah. And then suddenly the camera has like a glitch, like a and it's incredible. The timing is really good because it's immediately when the glitch happens, Chris screams in pain and grabs his forehead, starts like convulsing, and it's sort of like he has forced. It's interesting because in the previous scene he said that he could because
It was
Jack,
merely a medium.
right, that Jack was saying, but how do you like if you can talk to spirits like a radio, then how do you sleep at night? And Christos says he can just like
Right.
shut it off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because apparently that's not really true, because in this scene he's getting overwhelmed by some force that he just cannot turn off. It's physically painful to him.
Yeah.
And he says
spirit. Yeah, go on. Go on.
right, he says of a name, Minnie, like someone like a Minnie's calling, and Jack is
He's
trying to
desperate for someone to accept it.
right, and Jack is like, well, maybe it's like a Mandy, and he's like, no, it's Minnie.
He's so sure. This time there's
yes.
no around.
Yeah,
He's not playing the Mary,
yeah,
trying to-
like it's a very specific targeted thing.
Mhm.
he says, "A married man, an unmarried man with a wedding ring."
Uh-huh.
And then his eyes like roll back into his skull,
And
and I think,
straight up disappear. It's scary. The lights start breaking all around the
yeah,
set.
yeah. Yeah,
Much
everything is
bleeding
like
off his nose.
some weird stuff starts happening, and then they cut to the ads, I think.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and this is when we get, for the first time, what's it going to be like backstage. We
Mhm.
have footage of things backstage.
Yeah,
Up
I
until
guess
now,
they
the
keep
show.
rolling the cameras or something. I don't know,
I mean,
something like
you
that.
gotta suspend your disbelief a little bit
No, but
because obviously there's not cameras following people around having private conversations,
sure, true.
but it's not totally out of place that
Mhm.
you know again
Yeah,
the
'cause
movie is
sometimes they
presented in
even.
color and then you have backstage scenes in black and white
Mhm.
to give you some disconnect.
Yeah, sometimes it even like splits, and you have like two recordings happening at the same
Hmm.
time. But yeah, there's I think it's Leo is the manager or something.
The producer of
The
the show,
producer,
he's
yes.
pressuring Jack to talk to the directors because they're sitting in the front row and he wants him to sign a new contract and make even more money for them, yada yada.
Hmm.
And Jack is just panicking at this point, trying to keep himself cool, obviously,
Right,
with everything that's
right,
going
right.
on. Chris too, also during the break, is acting very different from his former self. He starts, as we mentioned, he's bleeding from his nose. He's
Hmm.
trying to show off the people, trying to do his makeup. He's being very rude. Um, things like these.
It's very interesting because he really does look like a changed man. It's like
Hmm.
he's interesting because you don't really know if he was just being a
Yeah, making cold readings and like pretending to be a medium, or if
right,
actually something happened. Because that
right.
last thing seemed
Mhm.
very serious.
Right. You don't know if he was like just being kind of a. And you know, you could argue that like some mediums, they really do believe that they have powers and they don't. I don't know. It's
No, I am not
complicated.
questioning
But
that.
at this
No,
point,
not the point.
right, not the point. The point is, yeah, he's a changed man. Something happened to him, and it's
Hmm.
he's
Definitely.
yeah. And he's like yeah, he's very almost like dissociating a little bit there. Anyway, he's seated with right, because we get introduced to the discount James Randi
Oh yeah,
named.
after coming back from commercials, yes.
Right. We are introduced to Mr. Carmichael Hunt.
Wasn't his name Haig?
Haig?
Yeah, Haig.
What? Well, I have Carmichael written in my notes because I don't.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
forgot
yeah.
his. Was it
That is
Haig
for
or was it
sure. Yeah,
Hunt?
I'm pretty sure his last name is Haig. Carmichael Haig. Yeah.
Really? Wow, I
Yes.
thought it was Hunt for some reason. I had that. Wow, weird.
Mike Hunt.
Um. Unintentional. Um.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah.
Right. So they sit both Christu and Carr to the news segment, to like kind of the interview. Carr is even doing like some tricks with his lighting a cigar, like making it disappear and then reappear and whatever.
I mean, man is a magician. He's a showman.
Mhm.
Yeah, but he has
Right.
no pretense about what he does. He doesn't pretend to be a sorcerer.
Right. Right. He's an illusionist, and he
Exactly.
doesn't pretend to be anything else.
Exactly. He's
And
the
he.
founder of the International Federation for the Scientific Investigation of the Paranormal.
Mhm.
The Foundation of Skeptics that I was trying to get the name after, but now that I'm reading
Right.
in my notes as we go.
I'm not
Um,
sure if is that a real thing.
there
I don't
are
think so.
things
There's
like
something
these.
similar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure. I am sure. And I find it super interesting that he name drops the Warrens of now the Conjuring fame.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was very a nice touch, I guess, because it's almost it's almost as if it's like a crossover between universes, while at the same time we know it's not, because these people existed, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
But
very
there are a
interesting.
real people that are mentioned in the movie, kind of like Johnny
Yep.
Carson, stuff like that.
Yeah. So in typical James Randi fashion, Carr says that he is looking for irrefutable proof of the paranormal, and he carries around with him apparently constantly
Mhm.
a check of $1 million
No,
that
it's
he's
half a
willing.
mil. Half a mil.
$500,000?
Yeah, half a million.
I've written. Wow. Okay.
The million, I think it turns out into a million later on the night. We'll check my notes as we go.
Whatever. It's a
Yeah,
big
it's a
amount of
big
money.
number anyway. Yeah.
A fat check for anyone who can prove the existence of the paranormal to him.
Yeah. They're just clashing.
Christus.
There's screams. There's Christu wants to leave. He tries to break through the doors of the show, of the set.
No,
Uh,
because Carr calls him a charlatan, and then Christu, because he was drinking water, he throws water on Carr's face, and then just
mhm.
wants to leave. He just wants to leave because
When he
yeah, like,
suddenly starts falling ill again.
yeah, he falls on the floor coughing, and then he regurgitates black goo
He
on Carr's back.
projects ichor
Yeah,
into his jacket. It's like
that travels
2 meters.
yes, something like that. And then Jack is like, cut to ads, cut to the ads, and then we have the ads. I mean, we don't have the ads because but we have the intermission.
Aig is now confronting Jack with all of this fabricated drama for ratings, and he also touches on the Grove because he wants to know what's going on in there. He wants to be invited
Right.
into this circle.
Right. Meanwhile,
And-
Christo was they called the ambulance
Mhm.
and they take
Yeah.
him to the hospital supposedly.
Jack complains to his producer about inviting Haig because he's being a complete dick. But this is the most important things that happened during this little intermission. Back to our third part of the show, we have the doctor being invited to have a little pre-taped video about the the cult and what they did.
Ah, wait. We skipped something. We skipped an important
Hmm.
thing that happened actually before the intermission. Because Jack was
yes.
defending.
Correct.
Because Jack
Yeah,
was
I know what you mean.
defending Christu against Hake's accusations because he said that last reading, the one that
Mentioned
changed
Minnie.
him,
Mhm.
he says Minnie was the private nickname that Jack called Madeline, and he is the unmarried. Technically, he's an unmarried man with a wedding ring, and then that's
Even
when
shows
he
it to the
spills-
camera.
Yeah, that's when the Christu falls ill and all that stuff.
Yeah, this is why Haig is confronting him with the fabricated drama. Yeah.
Right,
Sorry.
right.
I skipped that.
But yeah, so next segment.
Yeah,
Go
the
ahead.
pre-recorded tape about the first Church of Abraxas. That's the name
Mhm.
of the Church of Satan standee. And their head, Zendor Diabo. And Diabo is spelled D. Oh my
Apostrophe.
god.
D apostrophe ABO. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is
Diabo.
supposed to be a sound alike to Diabo, which is like a Portuguese
Latin
Spanish
name.
version of saying, or Latin. No, Latin would be Diabolus.
Yeah, not
It's
Latin, but
Spanish- Spanish
Latin
Portuguese way of
languages.
saying devil. Yeah, it's interesting.
Again,
yeah,
these guys were completely crazy. As I mentioned before, they are kind of a mix between David Koresh and the Church of Satan, because they got sieged by the feds, and Sandor commanded its followers to burn the house, burn themselves.
right.
The only
Because
person
they-
that stayed alive was Lily.
Because
Child.
they supposedly what they supposedly did was they impregnated women and then sacrificed the babies to Abraxas. That was what the reason supposedly why the feds had to raid and essentially lay siege to the
Their house, their
to the
complex.
church. Yeah, and then they, instead of surrendering, they decided to burn
Yeah.
burn it all down and themselves down. And yeah, the only survivor was this girl.
Who apparently can
Who-
connect to Abraxas.
Yeah, and it's this isn't said or established in the movie, I don't think. but I think it is implied that this girl is the daughter of Diabo, one of those from one of those pregnancies. So they were going to sacrifice her if the feds hadn't laid siege to the building. I think that's implied. So yeah, she's a survivor of a lot of things. Probably saw a bunch of rituals happen, and she allegedly has a demon inside of her.
It's not that even she's possessed by it. Like from time to time, it's living with her. It's like a state that she can become.
Yeah, right. It's almost like a symbiotic relationship in a way.
It's a sort of split personality. She dissociates into Mr. Wriggles, as she calls him.
Yep. This is all explained as well So we have the entrance of her, Lily, and the expert, June. And June explains all of this, and because they're sat down next to Christo's no longer here, next to Carmichael, and they explain this. And of course, Car is constantly doing his insults towards her profession and all of that. It's interesting because at this point, I think from everything that has happened, almost everyone is against Car. Like, Car's the only character who's like completely hard skeptic. Like, nah. You're all making this stuff up. None of this is real. And
but it becomes apparent later on that he is straight up just making excuses not to pay the damn check.
Yeah, that's what Jack says at some point. Yeah.
Regardless, I want to mention as well that there is a lot of tension. There is notable sexual tension between Jack and Jane. They have met before. Sure.
Right, I wasn't even sure if I was like reading wrong because I'm
happy for you that you noticed
learning. I'm still learning this stuff, but I feel like I just it was they did it well. It was. I mean, you also kind of mentioned it when we were watching the movie, so that kind of brought attention to it. Because you notice the stuff better than I do, but yeah, clearly they're fucking. I think I think that's how how it goes.
There's a moment where Lily has a pep talk with Jack about his wife.
Oh,
she seems to know a lot.
No, there's several lines that she says to Jack which are insane. The first line one of the first lines she says is, "I know a lot about you, Jack. You're going to become famous tonight."
I'm pretty sure you're going to become famous very soon.
Yeah, she says that, and then the second line, which I think is just, it blew my mind. We had to pull the tape back to watch that again because that was insane. So this is after they cut to the break. Because in the because they're sweating and that stuff. So the makeup staff has to come and do the makeup to them. And Jack, I guess they didn't do a good job on the makeup for Lily, and then Jack says something like
everybody gets retouched between commercials.
Right. He says like Jack's because he gets up and he says like touch up make everybody like prettier or something like that. And when he says this, Lily turns his back to Lily. Yes, and then Lily turns her head towards Jack and speaks, and that's not Lily's voice.
Yeah,
I don't know whose voice that is.
Voice. It is
not Lily's voice. She says,
Maddie's.
"Am I not pretty enough, Jack?" Something like that. And he doesn't look at her. Like he keeps his back.
He notices something weird.
Yeah, something weird, but he says,
"No." But it's like he shakes it off. It must be the nerves.
You're pretty, something like that. Yeah. But that was freaking crazy. Like, whoo. I love that the movie just throws these, like, because it keeps the tension going, the several kinds of tension going. It's just it's so good because you're not expecting it. It's not jump scares. it's little peaks of weirdness here and there, and I love that. I love that.
And so during this break, Jane is worried that about, Lily being in this situation with all these people and she could lose control. She's been more and more erratic lately, while Jack just sees the potential rating boosts of this going to shit, essentially, of having a total meltdown live on television. This is when Leo informs Jack that Christou has died en route to the hospital. He asks him not to spread the message, especially not to his co-host, while Haig discovers the bit that the cold reading that was successful was actually also staged. And he is pursuing all of these little things, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Right.
When we come back on, Jane is talking about her work with Lily and the book she wrote, Conversations with the Devil. And Haig starts being very abrasive towards Jane and what she does, essentially attacking her for taking advantage of this kid.
They have several items that survive the burning down of the church. They have them spread on the table, and a car grabs the dagger, and he like makes it look like the dagger's like come alive, and he's like, "Oh, I can't help it," and the dagger's like pointing to his chest and trying to stab him. The audience seems to believe it for a second. It's just he's completely just like making fun of all of them. He's just not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this loud noise starts echoing throughout the sets. Everyone thinks it's very weird until Haig realizes it's just feedback and plugs the machine. Like, this guy is going full on to debunk everything that's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so while this is happening, Lily says it was Mr. Wriggles that did all of this. And the people start clamoring for, a live demonstration of Mr. Wriggles. And obviously...
Right, the demon inside of her.
Yeah, you got to give the people what they want. They want to see a Brachus, so yeah.
Typical Roman Emperor fashion of Jack.
Yeah. During the break, Jane claims that she was ambushed into doing this. Gus fires on Jack about messing with things he doesn't understand. He knows that Christou has died.
Mm-hmm.
And when they come back on, Jack is preparing everyone in the live studio audience and at home for what they're about to see, giving all of those speeches that the following images may be too sensitive for the faint of heart and for children.
Right, they are attempting to commune with the devil, or in this case, Mr. Wriggles.
Yeah. Jane gives off a list of things that she wants the audience not to do while she controls Lily into becoming a Abraxas, and Lily is put on... Sorry?
Not Abraxas, the other demon. Because they mentioned that Abraxas is like the greater demon, and then the demon that is inside of her is a lesser demon, supposedly.
Who cares?
Right. But this, I think this is going to be important later, at least for the analysis that I'm going to do about the following scenes. But anyway.
Oh, but you're right. Regardless, she is put in restraints and into a hypnotic state. She starts flailing, trying to break the restraints. Her face becomes like Reagan-like, as in The Exorcist.
Yeah, I think her eye color changes, and like her hair becomes all like with like static electricity, becomes all like weird, and
there's scabs on her face. And when the demon, if technically the demon starts speaking, you hear two voices, which is also very interesting. She starts firing on Jane, on Jack, she mentions, like, Lily says something while turning to Jack, like, long time no see. Jack answers, like, I don't think we've met. And the demon replies back with, no, we have met amongst the tall trees.
Right.
This is when the things start, like, you start connecting all the dots, and everything starts becoming clearer.
I don't exactly know when this happens, but there is. I noticed it the first time. They mention it later in the movie, but for a single frame, you see like an apparition, and I I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be like a face. When she's turned to Jack and her, like, she has the back of her head towards the camera, something shows up in the back of her head like a face. But it's only for like one frame. And well, it's just in the camera's a glitch.
The demon also mentions of June and Jack each other.
Mhm.
June tries to expel Lily from Lily. Well, sorry, these
Right,
notes are
'cause
clearly wrong.
yeah, so Mr. Wiggle starts saying really bad things on live television because they are on live
Mhm.
television, and she slaps the shit out of him or her,
A child.
and that was that was not nice. You know, things start. There's like electricity going on the ceiling and whatever. Like it starts hitting the fan, and June just gets up and pulls out her I think it's a crucifix, isn't it?
No, it's something else. I think
An
it's
amulet
I
of
think
sorts.
it's an Abraxas stone, which would make sense, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I think she's trying to. Oh, her Aladdin is so bad.
Yeah, her
Oh
Latin
my.
is awful, but it seems to work though. Somehow the spell does seem to work that brings back Lily.
Not
And
after,
when
but not after. He floats with her on the chair in front of everyone.
yeah, the chair actually floats and stuff. Yeah, it's shit starts hitting the fan. Like things are going crazy, and then she does the spell, and then the chair falls back on the floor, and Lily's back. And Lily's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. What did I do?" Like, because apparently,
Clearly
yeah,
has no
like
memory.
she no. I feel like she says like she isn't really asleep. She's kind of aware that stuff happened, but she
It's
doesn't
sort of
really.
like a dream. You probably
Right,
remember bits of it. The more you focus on
right,
it, the
right,
more you
right.
remember.
It's yeah, maybe that's it. But yeah, they cut to ads once again.
Yeah, this is when Jack starts pressuring June to bring Lily every week from there on out.
Right, like this was probably the biggest thing that happened on television like ever at this point.
Obviously, the crowd is scared shitless, and they all left en masse.
Yeah, a lot of people left. That's true.
While the producer is telling Jack that their numbers are going through the roof.
Makes sense.
And yeah, we come back to the last part of
The
our
last
Night
segment.
Owls show, the last segment. Thank
No,
you.
actually, I think there's. Is it? Yeah, I think it is once. It's a really long segment because it's the last one, but I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
I think it might be just one segment.
Because it
Yeah,
involves
and
the shenanigans.
a lot of them. So right, so they're seated back on their chairs, and this is when Carr or Haig he starts. This is when he like really shines as a character because he's gonna be like, nah. Everything that you saw, I can explain it. And Jack's like, no way. You cannot explain what just happened. Like, she literally floated on her chair. Did you, like, how do you explain the voice and everything? And he's like, nah. Let me demonstrate. I
Watch.
need a volunteer. And he grabs Gus, Gus who,
The
so far
forced
has been
volunteer.
basically, right. He's been, at this point, he's just been like a minor character. He's just been like, like
The
on,
co-host, yeah.
yeah, the co-host. And he gets a little bit on the spotlight when not Gus, Hunt or Haig sits him. You know, he puts two chairs, sits him in front of him, and he takes out a pocket watch, and
It's
he
his own
essentially
special pocket watch.
right because it like transforms into the spinny thing, and he hypnotizes mostly everyone, but
Wait, when
more
Nathan
strongly
says
Gus.
mostly everyone, he means everyone. Every Gus, the Jack, the hosts, the audience that's there, the band, everyone at home. Okay?
However, there's one person that he does not hypnotize, and that's Lily. This is I think this is pretty clear
Yeah.
in the way that she acts because she like the way she's acting does not at all match what's happening or what we see happening. But
Yeah,
yes,
while everyone is horrified of what's happening, what you're going to describe, she is laughing her ass off.
mhm, yep.
To go on.
So this next sequence is we essentially see just like Gus. Things happen to him. He has a he starts feeling really warm. He takes his jacket off. Haig mentions that he has like a little thing, like a little like wound on his neck, and he's like, "Oh, I cut myself while shaving today." And then he takes something out of the wound, and it's a worm. Right, because forgot to mention that
He
Haig
asked
was
him
like
if he's
talking to
deadly
him,
afraid of
right?
worms. Yeah.
Like why are you afraid of worms? And he says, "Oh, they're disgusting. They don't have arms or legs or a face."
They're icky.
Yeah, they're icky. And then he starts realizing that he has worms inside of him, all over his body. He starts screaming. The audience starts screaming. He rips open his belly and worms start spilling out. And while this is happening, Haig turns to the camera and winks. And then he snaps his fingers and nothing happens. Haig gets up from his chair, like, uh-oh, what's going on? And Gus is just, he's crawling on the floor.
He's transforming himself into a worm.
Right, a giant worm starts, like, his eye pops out and the worm comes out, like a giant, like, pulsating worm. And then, finally, Haig says the magic words, "Dreamer, here, awake." And everything goes back to normal. Gus is, like, there are no worms anywhere. There's no blood. His eyes back in place. All of that, the entire sequence was just imagined, essentially.
I myself was fooled. When he winks, I myself was fooled because I thought, yeah, he's gonna break the spell. And suddenly...
Right, no, like a double, triple...
It is so good!
Like a double... Because the movie makes you think...
I'm not done falling from the first rug pull. The rug is pulled from under my feet again.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
It's so good. Because it really did fool me. Like, when the first time that he snaps his fingers and it doesn't work, I was fooled. I was like, yep, yeah, this is actually happening. He successfully demonstrated what people under the effects of hypnosis can experience. Jack is like, no, y'all saw the worms, right? Like, everybody. Like, he asks, like, the audience, and, like, there were, like, 2 people who didn't see the worms, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, let's look back at the footage. And so they play it back. And when they play it back, yes, the people are acting the same. Like, Gus is terrified. He's pretending to open his belly, but he's not. Yeah, he's like, essentially everything that they saw was just being narrated by Haig.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, his narration became what they saw.
Right. People were put into this suggestive state in which anything that you tell them in the correct intonation and certain specific trigger words have this reaction on people.
Yep.
Hypnosis can be a very powerful tool when used in the right hands.
Yes, and Haig says, well, this is the same thing. This is exactly what happened to Lily and to June. June hypnotized Lily and made all of us believe that we saw all those things, like the voice and the chair floating and all that.
Right. And so if that's true, let's just play back the tape, right? From Lily's incident.
I'm not entirely sure who suggested that, but like
Lily herself. I was like, yes, kid, thank you. Thank you.
Right. Because she didn't get hypnotized and she's not buying it. I mean, like, clearly, like, she knows what happened to her.
Mm-hmm.
And because they were ready, because that's why I'm saying the segment is longer than the rest, because the segment was supposed to end right here. Like, Jack was ready to be like, well, thanks everyone. But he was ready to just end the show because, yeah, that was a good cliffhanger ending. Even like, was it real? Was it not? It's a nice, it's good for ratings. So he
also wanted to. Sorry to interrupt, but he also wanted to force Lily and Jane to come back next week.
Right, right. Like he was, yeah, he wanted to make this a regular thing, and
Mhm.
so you have to keep things short. You have to make sure there's open questions and all that. But then Lily said, no, 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 let's watch the tape of my thing, of my
Jimmy lit
segment,
up.
because yeah, like if it was really hypnosis, then let's see that.
Hmm.
And so they play it back, and everything happens exactly how they remember. The voice, the weird faces, and
The
all
floating
of that.
chair. But
Um,
one thing extra.
right before they get to the floating chair, they do see this thing, which I'm pretty sure that the producers or the cameraman, they
Yes,
noticed this because they were
it's
talking about
something.
this way before.
Yeah, it's
Like
something that
they,
we
they were
didn't
looking
mention.
back. Yeah, they were no, actually mentioned it. They were looking back into the recordings, and they were mentioning like there was some weird glitches happening. And this is, yeah, right. When they play it
But
back,
this
they do
happens
see.
throughout all the backstage segments. It's something that is recurrently happening. The producers on the Reggie, I think that's what it's called. But yeah, they're noticing something in the cameras that the rest of the people are not noticing. You're right.
Yeah. And so when they play it back, so this is playing back exactly how we saw it the first time it happened. And so, as I mentioned, that glitch that we saw at the back of the head of Lily happens again. And so, but it's only one frame. It's a very, very, very quick thing that you blink and you miss it, essentially. But Jack notices it, and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. Pull it back a little bit, like 2 seconds." And then they try to go frame by frame. It's really hard to catch it because it's one frame, and the whole thing is like glitching out because you have the rolling shutter and all that stuff. And when they catch it, it's kind of weird because when they catch it, it's not the same glitch. We actually see a full apparition of what appears to be Madeline, the ghost of Madeline, standing next. I think it's between Jack
Behind
and
Jack,
behind. Right.
hand on his shoulder.
Yes, because when they're playing back I mean, obviously, when they're playing back this footage, Lily starts acting up because, well, yeah, no, you are playing back the exact thing that made the demon come out. So yeah,
Haig is accusing Jack of orchestrating this entire thing as a very elaborate prank on him and everyone at home.
yeah, because it's his wife, so it's like, yeah, like clearly this is like you made this. This is all for the cameras and stuff. But then Lily, how do I describe this?
He essentially becomes a living portal. There's static coming from the television and from the lights in the ceiling that uses her as a sort of connecting point. She's
guess.
being electrified into the air, and her head splits open like
It's
a
it's like
bolt
it's
of
like
lightning
half. It's like half of her head split. Like imagine like
vertically.
yes, it's like from the top of her forehead to like the mouth opens. Yeah, it splits. Her eyes are like glowing red, and all just like electricity around. Like she's no longer like a physical thing. Is what it looks like.
Yeah.
And
Here come the hilarious parts.
oh yes,
People trying to exercise her just end up completely.
I think in order, I think first victim is Gus, who just
The power of Christ compels you.
yes, his only crime is pulling out a crucifix and trying to do because I think Gus is an exorcist, isn't he? Or he's someone.
No, Gus is a very religious and supernatural person. Clearly,
Okay, there we
because
go. There we go.
he's the first one and the only person to actually in the movie come to Jack and say, "You are messing with things
That's
you
true.
will not understand.
That's
You
true.
need to stop this."
Mm-hmm.
And poor man ends up with his back
Yeah,
facing his back. With
Yeah,
his
no,
sorry, with his face,
face
on his back.
So his only crime was trying to was pulling a little crucifix and saying the power of Christ compels you, and then his head just gets flipped.
Then it's
Uh,
Jane, I think,
yeah,
whose throat gets sliced
yeah, because
after
he
using the
grabs
Abraxas stone.
right. He grabs the Abraxas stone, and then the stone catches her throat and slices her throat open.
Because it's like a necklace, yeah.
And then here comes the most
Oh.
incredible part, which is obviously Carmichael. He gets up. How do I even? Okay.
Oh, honest
Because
reaction.
yeah, honest reaction. He gets up from his chair and he says, and I'm
Did
not.
you take notes?
I don't.
I don't
I don't
know.
have. No. I did not take notes. But he says something along the lines of, "Whoever you are, I renounce all my previous beliefs and I submit myself only to you." Something like that. He
Yeah,
is.
essentially he wants to become the head priest of this demon
Yes.
because
He is instantly converted.
he
And
like in
it's
the beginning of the movie he says something like the world would be so much interesting if the paranormal were actually real. And like at least he's honest, you know. He's true to his own word because as soon as he's got undeniable proof that it is in fact real, he's the first person to actually submit himself to it. Too
yeah.
bad it didn't work.
Yeah. But it's interesting 'cause he gets like because
Burned.
the demon looks at him, and I'm not sure, like he falls on his knees and he takes out the check, and then the check is burnt off of his hand, and then he starts burning alive. He starts melting, in fact.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Jack is watching all of this, and Jack isn't really trying to run away necessarily. He's kind of trying
Paralyzed
to
in
not
fear.
maybe, but he's not interfering, and he's not running away. The rest of the staff, right? Because everybody, the studio, the band, everybody's screaming and running away from this thing, obviously, and he has one last look at the face of this entity before the door closes between them. And then the cameras, one camera who's focusing on the demon zooms in on the face and then cut to static, literally just static, and we see a face for like 1 second trying to
come out.
come
Yeah.
out of the static, something like that. Yes.
Right.
And then we cut to ads.
Listen, we've been watching this movie in 5:4 this entire time. When the movie suddenly cuts to a widescreen resolution, and we start reliving some of Jack Delroy's best moments. He's trapped in a sort of, you use the word purgatory, and I think it fits very well because he's just in this state of
Limbo.
nothingness. Yeah,
Limbo's
sort
a
of
better
limbo.
word,
Limbo's
yeah.
a better word, indeed. But none of this matters. Okay, he's asking you to turn off the TV to end his misery, essentially, because he realizes that there's no way out for him. When what I think is the most interesting bit of this movie, and when we have confirmation of Jack's true crimes, we essentially see him reenact his what should I call it? This the moment he was sworn in
His ritual,
the fraternity.
Mhm.
He's drinking what we presume to be some sort of blood out of a goblet in front of a owl-headed person who seems to represent this demon that they worship. And after he sealed his deal, he's taken into a room where his dead wife is. They have this conversation about how this was his payment, essentially, that essentially Jack made a Faustian deal, only he did not pay with his soul. He paid with Maddie's.
Right.
The fact that she had terminal cancer, lung cancer, for a person that never smoked a cigarette in her life is all the foreshadowing you should need to understand this. But regardless, she asks Jack to take the Thane, the sacrificial dagger, and to kill her, essentially,
Finish the
and her
job.
pain and her misery. You know, instead of metaphorically killing her, literally kill her.
Mm-hmm.
Once he comes to himself and punches the dagger into Madeline's chest, he realizes that he's actually stabbed Lily.
Yep.
And that he
On live
murdered
TV.
everyone in the set.
I'm not entirely sure if but basically, yeah, he's surrounded
implied.
by dead bodies.
It's implied that what happened is the demon finally came to collect on Jack's debt. I mean,
I
yes,
guess. Yeah.
you were made famous, but at what cost?
Right. This is the price.
Exactly. It's not what you asked. It's a monkey paw.
Yeah, and he's standing alone on the studio, surrounded by dead bodies, and he's saying
Yes.
repeatedly, "Dreamer here awake, Dreamer here awake."
And
trying
as
to-
sirens, yeah, I
Right.
heard blazing in the distance.
and then the show ends.
That scene. Damn. That was
Yeah,
that was very
something.
well made.
Whew, so much to talk about.
Very shortly summarize it. I think it comes down to what I just said in these last few moments, that this is a modern sort of Faustian deal.
Yeah, it's as you said, it's like the monkey's paw. It's yeah, it's the deal that goes wrong.
Yeah.
And you can't even blame because okay, back to the whole thing of the like Abraxas, Mr. Wriggles situation. It is not yeah, it's not clear what this entity who's possessed Lily at the end is.
Mhm.
Because I don't think it's Mr. Wriggles. I think that's Abraxas.
Yeah, I don't think it matters anyway what demon it is.
But no, but I think it does matter because this is the demon that comes to collect the payment, right?
Mhm.
Or to finish the job that they have to do. Because at the end, like just when we have the literally when we cut to black, essentially, we have a little text at the bottom corner which says like end of transmission or something like that.
Right. The I remember
very
of one
last.
demon whose head is an owl from the Lesser Key.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his name is Andras. Andras is
Uh.
he's a human with the head of an owl, which is what's represented as the deity of the grove.
Ah, okay, that's interesting. But yeah, it's when the text which says end of transmission transforms into it is all done. I think what that means is yeah, like the job is finished.
Yeah, yeah.
This demon came to finally do his deed, and personally, I think that's Abraxas. You might disagree with me. Maybe Abraxas is just one of the many names this entity has. I don't know. But yeah, the whole thing of
I only use Andras' name because the movie is, I mean, giving you hints with the. I don't think they use the owl head for no reason, you know. The movie is so well thought up to this point. Why leave that up to chance?
Right, right. I mean, you know, they have the whole because the whole show, you know, Night Owls, it has the whole like the owl motif, and it must have been inspired by something. Like he must have come. I mean, sure, the whole Night Owls, the idea that it's a late night show, also makes sense. Yeah, I think there's something there. I think you got something there.
Just saying it again.
No, I think that makes
My
sense.
point is that, and obviously, just because demons are known to be not honest, so yeah, worship Abraxas. Sure, I'm Abraxas. Yeah, worship me.
Right, right.
Like
that's a good analysis. Like that's what I'm saying. Like Abraxas could just be an alias.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be the real name. In fact, because
and again, if you think about it, like why would the demon from the church of what was it called, the first church of Abraxas, and the guy in the grove have the same name? You know, there has to be some connection in there,
right?
Or they just it up.
I don't know. It is very interesting. The whole when Mr. Wriggles turns to Jack and says, "Don't you remember me? We met in the tall trees." That's just there's a poetry there as well. The whole like Jack is not only is he not satisfied with his honestly pretty successful life, like not gonna lie, like even if his show gets canceled, I'm pretty sure he's not gonna be miserable. Like he's gonna still have like a fortune that he can spend on other things. Like he doesn't have to do this, right? But obviously, you know, who am I kidding? I mean, I also never satisfied with my job.
Again, if you're not the best, what's the point?
Right. But not only is he not satisfied with his career, but I think in general it's the whole lesson of this movie, of this entire thing, I think really comes down to careful what you wish for, obviously. But also it's a lesson on greed and almost like lust as well. Because, yeah, like his wife died and now he's banging another woman. And the whole idea that he met in the tall trees with this other demon also kind of shows that there were things that he was doing completely adjacent while he was married, and that he just didn't really care.
Pause.
Hmm?
Do you think we could find a standee for every deadly sin in this movie?
Huh. You know what? I didn't think of that. Well, Gus is clearly gluttony. That's bad. That's bad.
So, Jack embodies greed. Maybe also lust. Also sloth. Because I'll say why. No, like he might be standing in for every one of them, and I'll explain you why. Why do I say sloth? It's a big point throughout the info dump at the beginning that is so dipped in quality because he's becoming predictable. He's using cheap drama to get audiences, and that's
I mean, doesn't everybody
No.
technically have all the deadly sins in them? Like, because
right. Okay, I get what you mean.
because I feel like the deadly sins are like envy and greed and wrath. Like these are human things. Like, of course,
Right, but we're talking about a written character. When you
Okay,
write characters,
fine,
you don't pick
fine.
seven flaws to.
Fine.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
I was just seeing if we could find evidence for all seven.
From a symbolic standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
I think his strongest one is probably greed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, selling your own wife as collateral for a deal, that's big.
Yes. And I think the other characters are, I think really the central character really is Jack. And I think he goes from what he thinks is, he thinks he's in control. Like he thinks he is playing a game.
Yeah.
And then he figures out he's just being played.
Yep.
And he's actually just another victim of this bigger game.
It's a lesson that we would have done well learning a few centuries ago.
Yeah, we are far removed from that now. But
if it was sometime a long time ago, I probably would have felt sorry for Jack. At this point, we can only laugh.
Because ultimately,
we've seen it so many times. Yeah, I hate to see it.
There's a point in which you start by playing the game, then at some point you figure out you're the one being played, and then couple of decades or centuries later you become the game, and life's much better because of it. That's my opinion, but
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say about this?
It's just great acting, great the visuals, as I said, I think in the beginning, the whole aesthetic of it matches, it fits into what I would classify as analog horror. It also fits into found footage.
Definitely.
But at the same time, it's unique. It doesn't really feel like, like you don't look at it and you say, oh, this is a found footage movie, or this is an analog horror. Like it is its own thing. It's very original in that.
It's a cocktail.
Yes.
This movie's a cocktail. And it tastes really good.
Mm-hmm.
I want more of this. Not specifically copies of this,
Yeah, of course not, because
it's
then
very
that's
hard.
Get stale. But
exactly, and it's also very hard to have ideas that are this much out of the box.
Mm-hmm. Well, at the same time, it's not. That's the thing. They play into the familiarity of the whole thing with the characters being similar to real people and the whole setting being very familiar, because talk shows, like everybody's seen talk shows at this point.
Yeah,
and
really, it does it really well. It's almost effortless. If you would have shown me this without absolutely no context, and you have just showed me the show itself without the backstage scenes, I don't know that I wouldn't believe it. You know?
Actually, yeah, I wonder. I mean, no, there's okay.
Obviously,
At
I'm
some
talking
point,
if as a complete alien, like
right,
to
because at some point, you
cinema.
know, the things get so extreme and the CGI. Okay, you know, we've seen a lot of things nowadays, and so if well, not me because obviously I know that the supernatural exists, but like if a mortal who has you know just a regular mortal like if you saw them if you show them this without the context and to remove the deleted scene the behind the scenes, I don't know if they would believe it necessarily because there is a lot of stuff on the internet and elsewhere, so it's hard to believe to know what to believe or not believe nowadays. But if somebody who doesn't have that notion saw it, then yeah, I think they would maybe believe it. They would be horrified after seeing this, and kind of like with Carmichael. And
Hmm.
you know what? I hope more people are like Carmichael. You know, not in the sense of trying to be an asshole about it and trying to insult people's beliefs and whatnot, but in the sense of when you do see it, yeah, like revoke all your previous beliefs and
Accepted.
just become one with it.
Right.
Yeah, just give in.
You know what I was thinking while we were watching this? A thought occurred to me that this is VHS but good.
Right. So okay, so VHS, we got someone puking black goo on live television. We got glitches on the tape. We got main characters who actually no, that's kind of it. But yeah, like that's it. This is you described it perfectly. This is VHS but good.
Like it's in VHS, the problem with it is
It's all
you
over the
have these
place.
stories, it's an anthology, it's a collection of short
Mm-hmm.
stories, and it's selling this aesthetic that late night grabbed and took off running with it,
Yep.
like sprinting.
Yeah, I think really the main difference because with VHS it's like the
You never know what you're going to get.
right. The shorts themselves on their own could work. Some probably without the whole VHS, the whole found footage aesthetic. Because honestly, most of them probably don't even need to be found footage to work, and a lot of them don't even make sense in found footage. Um, but I think yeah, trying to make it an anthology and trying to sell it as these are all happening in the same universe, like almost at the same time. If you don't have like an overarching vision, things get pretty all over the place and pretty weird fast. For example, the tone is all over the place. Like you have like one short is like really dark and gloomy, and then the next short is like action pew pew, people getting chopped off in and then the next one is almost like laughable how ridiculous the premise is. Like yeah, it doesn't really work.
This is focused. This is honed in. This is
Right.
this is
And that's the
done
thing.
extremely right.
I don't know if I've said this before on this show, but my theory on horror is that realism is more important to horror for horror to work than I think any other genre.
Mhm.
That's my opinion. Because in order for you to feel fear, you need to believe that there's danger, that characters are in danger, or you. And that only comes from, you know, experiences that you've lived in the past, things that you know. So what I'm saying is like, okay, you could make a horror movie in which a guy passes a portal and is transported to some alien planet where like they've called on him to defeat these horrifying creatures with 7 heads and 14 eyes on each head, and that you know, you could make an entire concept and then you could make these creatures horrifying. But because you've taken out the known, the unknown feels less scary because you don't have that connection. You know what I mean? So you okay, well, I'm not criticizing Lovecraft, obviously. I mean, I kind of am. But what I'm saying is okay, Lovecraft is like Lovecraftian horror is good, in the way that it touches on the whole like the philosophy and the things you don't understand and all that. But in order to really feel that, you need something that grounds you in your own experiences, in your own life as well. So I think good horror, the really good horror, is the one that is almost exactly real life, but then something isn't. And that something is so much more terrifying because it's surrounded by something you're familiar with. That contrast, you know.
While I agree with you,
Mhm.
I pray to Satan that no eldritch god heard what you just said, because that sounded like an affront.
Yeah, please. This is okay. This was a joke. This was all a joke.
For
None of I
legal
said
reasons,
for
my
legal
lord.
reasons. That's a joke. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Before we piss off anyone else even more, I really think that's all we can say, honestly,
Yeah.
without spending hours and hours talking about this. Go out, see it if you haven't, because if you haven't and
Yes.
you stayed listening in up to this point, that's kind of weird. But okay,
No,
good for
thank you
you.
for the views. Thank you for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
views.
we appreciate it, regardless. And let's just go ahead and give it a final rating.
So what would you rate this?
I want to say 9 out of 10. This is a 9 out of 10. This is really, 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 really,
Mhm.
really, really, really. I really liked it.
Six because he's the guy.
Sorry, what?
No, no, just whatever.
Yeah, the use of artificial, whatever.
No, let's not even acknowledge it. It's whatever. It's just it's.
I agree, because honestly,
I think it's
plays
better.
nothing.
Some things are better left unmentioned, I guess.
Yeah, but no, you want a funny thing.
No, that's fine. I think it's fine. None out of 10.
9 scared girls out of 10 floating chairs.
I was gonna say 9 daggers out of 10 owls, but okay, that's fine.
9 knights out of 10 owls. Let's meet in the middle.
Fine.
All right. With that, the candles are out, the circles have been erased, and we will let silence reign again. The Grymm Mansion is closing its gates. We hope you have a horrible night. And until we meet again.